Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Modern Horizons 3 is now legal, so we're diving right in. I have a donation deck today to play on the channel. Someone from my Patreon wanted to see a Cephalid Breakfast deck with Nadu Winged Wisdom. If you're unfamiliar with this card, you're going to be very familiar with it moving forward because it's going to be a huge player in Legacy. It's 1 green and a blue for a 3/4 flyer. Creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, it goes into play. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. But that's twice each turn for the creature. So for every creature you have, if you've got a way of targeting them for 0 mana, you get to draw 2 cards per creature, which is bananas. So we have Shuko to do that. So every creature we have, we just pay 0 a few times, draw a bunch of cards. We also have Nomads En-kor. So we can target our creatures on our turn and our opponent's turn and just draw all the cards in the world. Now these sorts of things are cards that you would normally see in a Cephalid Breakfast deck. This is a deck that targets Cephalid Illusionist repeatedly, and every time we target it, we mill 3 cards until we mill our whole deck. Narcomoebas jump out the graveyard. We then dread return, targeting our Thassa's Oracle, and win the game when we have no library. So that's like the standard Cephalid Breakfast deck. And we now got this other engine of Nadu, which allows us to play a really strong mid-rangey game that gets to use a lot of the same tools, so it's just a perfect match made in heaven, really, between these two sorts of game plans. We also have Stoneforge Mystic and Kaldra as a nice wing addition, as well as some Urza Saga, so we've kind of got like this just selection of pretty good cards, because Nadu, you know, it's a 3/4, it may be a legend, but if they bounce it with Caracas, we're cantripping, so that's pretty bananas. We've got a little bit of removal here. We've got a bunch of cantrips in Ponder, Brainstorm, Lorien Revealed. We have 4 Delighted Halfling, which allow us to play uncounterable Teferi and uncounterable Nadu, which is a very nice place to be. It means we're always going to be getting a card off of this, basically, if we put it in uncounterably. We have 1 Saga Lantern we can find off the Urza Saga, because, you know, Graveyard Hate is definitely a thing that we need in this format. We've got a Cabal Therapy, which is when we mill our whole library over, we can then use the Narcomoebas, if we've got spare creatures, to Cabal Therapy first and, you know, check that the coast is clear. And also, if we're milling our library over in post-board games, we can do this. If this gets milled over before our Oracle and our Dread return, we can fire this off to make sure there's no Graveyard Hate, and then we can carry on milling. And alongside this, we also have 4 Force of Will. So that's pretty much the main deck. We have 1 Underground Sea, 3 Tundras, a load of Trops, and a Savannah with a Plains and an Island, and a Meticulous Archive, and a Hedge Maze. We've got a pretty stable mana base there, and we are a Yorion deck, if that's why you're wondering why there's so many cards in this list. Oh, we also have Step Through, which tutors for the Illusionist, or the Thassa's Oracle if we have to do a weird one where there's like a lane line in play and we just have to exile a whole library and then just cast the Thassa's Oracle from hand. So yeah, we are a Yorion deck because, you know, a lot of things we're trying to fit in this deck so we can play all the Nadus and stuff. So we're playing the full 80 card deck here. This is actually an 81 card deck, and this list comes from Danny Batterman, who won a local event with this deck. Sideboard wise, we've got Haywire Might and a Pithing Needle, which we can find off of the Saga. We've got some Veil of Summers, Hydroblasts, and Force of Negation to protect us from various things in the format. A Lavinia to stop some opposing spells. So Vexing Bauble, is a card that a lot of people are going to be playing. And Lavinia kind of does the same thing but one-sided. So this is better for us because we are trying to cast spells that don't cost any mana. We've got a little bit of extra removal and Dismember and Prismatic Ending. And obviously we've got the Yorion in there and a piece of Graveyard Hate that we can tutor with our Stoneforge for when that's required. So quite a lot going on here. We're basically going to draw our boatload of cards. This card is absolutely bonkers. I thought it was pretty good, but having now seen it in action and play with it, I can tell you that this card is the best card in Modern Horizons, I think. And I would not be surprised if we don't get to have this for the longest amount of time in Legacy. And hopefully, in this video, I will show you exactly why that is the case. Alright, like and subscribe, and let's start getting our bird on. Right, welcome to round 1. I will reveal my Yorion. Alright, we've got a Ponder. It seems like a pretty good way to start the game off, so I'll keep this. We are playing these games in the tournament practice room because the new leagues are not up for another 50 minutes or so. Okay, so we don't have a basic forest, and we do want to play our Halfling this turn. So this is going to be a Tropical Island into Delighted Halfling. Alright, our opponent's got a Bloodstained Mire. That is a swamp. We can see some sort of Dark Ritual Reanimate shenanigans. A Duress. Okay, well, let's hit. I'd rather take the Force of Will than the Ponder here, but we'll see what they go for. Right, they're taking the Force of Will. This kind of confirms our opponent's doing something a bit combo-y. That's also what the duress tends to say. That's not a main deck card you see in decks that are trying to play a fair game, usually. I will cast this Ponder. This Nadu isn't really doing it for us right now, but I do like this Brainstorm. So it feels like we need to see some fresh cards here. It suggests to me that we need to shuffle and then Brainstorm. So we probably just want a Tundra here. We are base blue-white for the most part. Let's cast this Brainstorm. Well, this is a bit of a stinker of a hand, isn't it? Okay, I think we'll put the archive back and then... Is that true? No, we probably want to play the archive next turn and mill off one of these cards we don't want. So I guess we can put Tundra and then hide the Stoneforge so they can't take it out of our hand with any discard spells. I'm not feeling great about this one. Right, so we're going to clip in for 1 damage. And I expect our opponent is going to do something really busted this turn. So, Entomb, Reanimate. Something like an Archon of Cruelty, a Grizzlebrand, or an Atraxa. That is my expectation here. Alright, we've got a basic island alongside a basic swamp. Still no play. Maybe we're looking at something more like a Storm deck that's just trying to build up critical mass here. So we know we don't want the top card of our library. And we're going to want to Surveil next turn, in this turn as well. So... we can use the Halfling to pay for a Daze if that's a thing that our opponent has. Are we just in with this, are we? Yes. I feel like we need the Kaldra Compleat here. We're a long way off of the other combo. We can also get Shuko with the Urza Saga. This now gives us the question of, are we trying to Meticulous Archive to look for some interaction with our opponent, or are we playing the Urza Saga for maximum threat? I think we need to see another card here. We can okay, a Brainstorm is a good card. I love that. So we can hard cast a Force of Will next turn, if that's the thing we need to do. But if we Brainstorm, we obviously can't do that because we'll have 4 mana left over after Brainstorming. But we can Brainstorm potentially into Force of Will blue card. All right, here comes some action from our opponent. Another Duress. So we're going to lose this Kaldra Compleat. If that's what our opponent's doing instead of casting a Dark Ritual, I can live with that. I wonder what our opponent's got going on over there. Feels like they must have something. The only thing we really need green mana for is Nadu, and we can cast it off of Halfling. So I'm going to use... I guess we've got 2 white sources. Maybe we should be using this one. Yeah, and we can still attack. Okay, let's Brainstorm. There is the Nadu. We don't want this Narcomoeba, so I can get it back in there, and we can put this Tropical Island back. I do kind of want to play the Urza Saga this turn, which means we're going to draw that Trop next turn. If we keep it like that. Or do we just try and spike higher? Because this is several turns before this actually does anything. Do I want an uncounterable Nadu or do I want to chip in for an additional 1 point of damage? I think I want uncounterable Nadu. There's blue off of this and green off of this. Uncounterable Bird. I think I would rather shuffle and get a Hedge Maze here. Look at an additional card and not draw those 2 cards on top of our deck. Rather than get the Urza Saga running. Because our Urza Saga construct is going to be relatively small. Yes, when it pops, we end up just going bananas and drawing all the cards in the world. But this way we have more looks at actually doing... Oh, okay. We're like a blue-black show and tell deck. I see. This can be a Grizzlebrand? No. Okay. That's a relief. Let's crack this. Get the Hedge Maze. Teferi Time Raveler. I would like this card. So this allows us to... We can play this uncounterably due to the Halfling. Because this is a legendary permanent. So white... Blue, colourless. Let's play out Teferi. We can bounce the Drifter, so we don't have to worry about getting attacked next turn. This draws us a card that maybe is a Shuko. Would be nice. A Swords to Plowshares. So now we are getting the Urza Saga up and running. The top of our deck is a Mystery right now, so there's no point shuffling. We don't have any more Surveil lands either. So we're just going to come crashing in with our little friends here. And we get to plough the Vesuvian Drifter on the way down again. Oh, a Palantir. Okay. So our opponent's probably got things like Emrakul in their deck. So I think we allow them to mill the first one, and then we'll see where we go. If you're unfamiliar with this card, they get to scry 2, then either they mill the number of counters on this, or they draw a card. They cannot draw any cards here. Okay, so there's Emrakul. That puts us to 3 immediately. That was a possibility. Soul Guide Lantern, and our Saga is ticking up. So I look to +1 here. Our opponent's deck does feel like it's going to use the graveyard, so I want to play out this Soul Guide Lantern. We have to remove something. We'll just remove one of our lands. So we can activate this. We're just coming in for damage here. Because we got the Teferi bubble, we can crack this and cast whatever comes out of it for the most part. I guess we can't cast creatures is a thing, but I think it's better just to have this in play when our opponent might be the sort of deck that is going to have a good time with their graveyard. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have lethal damage next turn. We just need to make sure we can make it out of this turn. We'll let our opponent draw this card because while we've got Teferi in play, that card won't matter. I have a Suvan Drifter. I will definitely plow this. Does that change our clock? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, it does not change the clock. Let's just bury this away now. Our opponent can draw a card, but that, again, it doesn't matter because they can't cast spells due to our Teferi. They're definitely getting this card, though. We got hit for 15. If we were on 15, I think we have to let them have the first Palantir activation because I just don't want to get beaten by an Emrakul off the top with this. Have them draw one card, yes. Because if they have the Emrakul, we just lose a game that we're in control of, more or less. We also get to draw a million cards this turn if we want to. We'll go to our phase here. Make this. Get Shuko. And then this can equip here. We draw a card. We don't need to do this, really. Because we've got the win. So we'll just equip over here. But like you can see, I'm just demonstrating. We can draw 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 cards this turn if we want to. We're not going to do that. We're just going to put it on this guy and swing while our opponent scoops it up. Okay, so black-blue show and tell. I imagine the Veil of Summers are probably handy here. Let's make this a little bit smaller. So the Veil of Summers are probably useful here. I think the Force of Negations are going to be pretty clutch too. The Haywire Might can blow up things like Palantir if we think that's a big deal with our opponent's deck, but I'm not sure it is. I think it's just a thing they happen to have. Dismember does kill the Suvan Drifter. So this is an option too. Prismatic Ending does too. Lion Sash if we think they're on graveyard stuff, which I do think they are on. So there's a selection of stuff here. Potentially a Dismember, potentially a Haywire Might. Quite a bunch of things that we are interested in. What doesn't look good? That's the problem here. Everything looks great. I think we need to concentrate on the cards that are most applicable for this matchup. So I think if our opponent's doing big stuff, we don't really want the endings. So let's put these up here. That gives us access to 2 Force of Negation. And if we would like this Lion Sash, we're going to have to find room for it. I think we can probably board out this Cabal Therapy. Although if the Dread Return is in our hand, how do we get rid of it? I guess we just draw a bunch of cards and then throw it back in the deck. We could just play like a Bant Control shell here. I do like having the eject button of being able to win the game. Alright. If we replace that with a Sash, do we want any of these things? I do like the Veils. Let's have a couple of Veils over Ponders. Let's try that. I think we do still want the Plows. We've got a little bit of protection. We don't want this card in our hand, but we can Brainstorm it away. We're relying on this Brainstorm to do a lot of work here. But we do have a couple of draw steps, potentially. I think I'm going to keep this. We don't need the Thassa's Oracle to win the game. Like, our deck has a pretty solid mid-rangey plan, and we can just draw a million cards if we get our combo up and running. Right, so we got an island. We're going to see... Okay, so this might just be playing around Stifle. Right, we've drawn a Veil of Summer. That's quite a nice one to have when our opponent's already shown us things like Thoughtseers. Sorry, not Thoughtseers, Duress, but they might have Thoughtseers in their deck as well. So we're going to go get ourselves a Tropical Island. We're going to cast Veil of Summer here. This will protect our hand and also cycle for another card. Get us digging towards that land. Alright, excellent. That's what I wanted to see. Ponder from our opponent. So we've got Brainstorm and Fetch Land, which is a pretty good combo. We get to shove this Thassa's Oracle back into our deck. Try and find some more useful cards. A Shuko. Okay, we don't need... Well, we do need to shove the Oracle back in our deck. We have the win next turn if we find a land. I think we will cast a Brainstorm now while the shield's down on potential Bowmasters. Okay. Force of Will is pretty good here. I don't think we need this card here. And we don't want the Thassa's Oracle either. Do I want to crack this and play the Shuko? I think that's reasonable. Just trying to think if I want to... Like, we just have the Shuko next turn, but they play discard. Is the Shuko more important than the Cephalid Illusionist? Probably. Alright, I'm going to play this. So we're going to go get ourselves a Tundra here. And we're just going to play the Shuko out. So we can win the game next turn with Force of Will backup. But our opponent might force us into doing some action. We'll see. There is a polluted delta from our opponent. Let's see, a show and tell. I do not want this to resolve. So I will point a Force of Negation at this, pitching a step through. If our opponent's got days, that kind of jams us up a bit. It's going to force us to use our Force pitching ponder. So they don't have days because you've used that first. So they've got one card in hand as the thing they want to put in. Alright, we've got the GGs. Alright, 1-0. Let's go to round 2. Alright, we're into round 2. Our opening hand is a little bit fuzzy here. I don't like this Underground Sea in our opener. I don't really like these two cards in our opener. It seems like a pretty obvious mulligan to me. I'm going to mulligan this. Okay, this seems a bit better. I kind of want to get rid of this Underground Sea. Well, I'll keep this. I could just get rid of the second Stoneforge and keep more mana, but Delighted Halfling is kind of like a land, and having the second Stoneforge can often be backbreaking where their one piece of removal hits the first one and all of a sudden you've got just another one lined up. Our opponent's on a mull to 5. I say their hand doesn't do very much, but I don't know. A little bit sketchy. So they can take our Delighted Halfling or our Ending. I don't think they're going to take one of our Stoneforges unless they plan on Thought Seizing us next turn as well. Alright, so taking our turn 1 play, which means we've just got a Surveil land as our turn 1 play now, which is totally fine. Alright, so let's play this out. We don't want our opponent to know what we have. So this is the mystery card for them. Our opponent's end step, we will crack this and get... I think it's Meticulous Archive here. Agony and the Undercrypt into Thoughtseize makes me think our opponent is on some sort of Oops All Spells list. Fellmire. Yep, it's definitely feeling like an Oops list. Which is a pretty powerful thing to be doing. Like with 12 coming to play untapped black sources. That's a lot. Big upgrade. Meticulous Archive, please. Soulguide Lantern, I'll put that on top. That is better than casting the Stoneforge here. Now, they might have, like, Charbelcher type stuff in their deck or whatever, I don't know. But if they are Oopsal spells, we've made their life a lot more difficult right now. Which is very much my job in this matchup. Entomb. Okay. So this could be a lot like the list I played on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it went out on the channel. But they might be just having more Reanimate in their package alongside the Oops. So they've got this plan as well as the regular Oops plan. Because this is going to force us to pop the Soulguide Lantern when they try and Reanimate this. They might also be doing some Shallow Grave stuff. So they can like Reanimate this and then Shallow Grave it. And that's pretty strong. Okay, let's cast a Stoneforge Mystic. I'm going to go and get the Shuko here. That gives us an out to potentially win the game next turn. And we get a Surveil as well. And we can just fire in our next Stoneforge to get a Kaldra if we need to. A Thoughtseize. I guess we're losing the Shuko here. That's fine. They might take the other Stoneforge, sure. We've got more Shukos in our deck. But we only have one Kaldra, whereas this line means that they couldn't Thoughtseize the Kaldra out of us. So, pretty happy with that play. Let's get this Hedge Maze in. Let's have a little Surveil. Thassa's Oracle. We definitely don't want to draw this. So I guess going into graveyard. We do want it in the graveyard eventually. But our opponent can Reanimate this and stop us being able to do our thing. Okay, so let's cast this Stoneforge Mystic. Go and get the Kaldra. There's no way that we can activate this before this goes on the stack, like you can when you're doing Batter Skull bounces. So let's go and get this Kaldra Complete. Let's put it in. So the difference here, if we got Kaldra last turn, is enormous. Like we'd be swinging for 2 damage this turn instead of 5. And Animate Dead. Okay, so we have to go exile each opponent's graveyard here. So this fizzles this. We've got 5, 6, 7 damage coming in. But our opponent is on 8. Alright. Escape. And that means they didn't have either a Reanimate spell or an Entomb spell in hand. Okay. Sideboarding. We want this Lion Sash. That seems like an obvious one. We want these Veil of Summers. And we want these Force of Negations. What do I not like here? I don't think we need the endings. They can hit an Animate Dead, but I think if I've already got their creature in play, things are starting to go a little bit awry for us. The Teferi is okay, but I'm not expecting counter magic out of our opponent's deck too much. I think we can probably trim on these. I want the plows, especially if our opponent has like a pivot into like Bowmasters, Dathi Voidwalker, that sort of thing. There's an argument here for the ponders to go so that we don't have, you know, a bunch of cards we're trying to draw into something. But if it's a choice between ponder and Teferi, I'm going to take the Teferi. How useful is Lavinia here? This stops Pitchcast Grief and it stops Lotus Petals. And it does stop some of their things that they might want to ramp into. I think I like this slightly more than a Teferi in this matchup. So we'll try that. Yeah, we're pretty fortunate to draw our one of Urza's Saga there. Oh, sorry, not our Urza's Saga, our Soulguide Lantern, which is something that we'd want to get off of the Urza's Saga. Here is our Yorion. It does not do anything turn 1, or turn 0, I should say. But I don't think we're mulling to one of our 6 forces. But is Veil of Summer a good enough payoff here? I don't think it is. I think we need some Graveyard Hate or some Counter Magic. So we'll mulligan this one. Okay, so this has Graveyard Hate in. So this is a keep. It's very land heavy. Is it more important to me to have just lands in hand or have this Lorien Revealed? I think the answer is it's more important to have just the lands because this is a thing that can get Thoughtseized out of our hand. And then if we were relying on that land, it's no good. This hand is soft, but it has something. We can't really mulligan to 2 pieces because we're a Yorion deck. It's not the most likely thing in the world. But we have one good piece. But if our opponent's got a Dark Ritual here, they're probably going to have us. Ooh, this is a spicy new card. This is a cool one. So they search their library for a card and exile it face down on the first chapter. The second chapter gets turned face up. If it's a creature card, they lose life equal to its mana value. And on the third one, they put the card onto the battlefield if it's a creature card. Otherwise, they put it into their hand. So it's like a slow black show and tell. And that makes our Soulguide Lantern plan look very bad. So the Soulguide Lantern doesn't look so good anymore. But this also is not something that we're going to be able to realistically deal with. Are we just going to go play the Shuko, possibly try and draw the combo next turn before this comes into play? Tricky. There's a tricky choice. We could play the Soulguide Lantern just in case they do have some sort of follow-up. They didn't even play a land last turn. This is a tricky call. I think we're playing out Tundra. It's either... Well, it's one of our 3 spells. There's a surprise. I don't think I have to worry about Soulguide Lantern this turn. It's a case of would I rather Ponder here or Shuko? I guess Ponder can find us answers. This means that we're not going to try and win the game next turn. Right, we wouldn't have got there. This is in any order in shuffle. Glad we got rid of those cards. Alright, we found another land, which isn't really what I wanted. But we're just looking for our little friend, Cephalid Illusionist. Alright, so there is a Traxxer underneath that. So next turn they get to put Traxxer into play with the trigger and all. Those Stifles in our deck. Source to Plowshares is very handy here though. I think this turn we play out the Soulguide Lantern in case our opponent spews off a bunch of stuff. And we'll exile Dark Ritual, sure. And this gives us the Plow in response to the Traxxer trigger. And then hopefully the Soulguide Lantern can clean everything else up, but our opponent will get a fresh grip of cards from this. Our hand is alright, but our opponent will have the resources to test it here. So we got rid of this. We've got the graveyard on lockdown, but we don't have our own way of winning the game just yet. We need to draw like a Nadu or a Cephalid Illusionist here. Okay, our opponent's revealed a bunch of cards. Alright. Quite a lot of stuff. So they can Chrome Mox something into play this turn, right? They got Chrome Mox. They can't Chrome Mox and Lotus Petal, actually. They can Chrome Mox Boggart Trawler, and that gives them Entomb Reanimates. But obviously we have that locked down with the Soulguide Lantern. They could just play a Dathi Voidwalker, and that shuts down our combo, which is very strong. I think that's the best play here, right? Take the Chrome Mox, the Boggart... Oh, no, they can't take Boggart Trawler and Dathi Voidwalker. That's quite awkward for them, actually. So what have they gone for? Thoughtseize, Boggart Trawler, Chrome Mox, Entomb, Creation of Avacyn. Thoughtseize, Boggart Trawler, Entomb, Chrome Mox. Right, they're playing the Chrome Mox as well here. And there's the Boggart Bog gone as well. And what was that underneath it? An Entomb. Yep. Again, Thoughtseized here. Another Chrome Mox. Right, because our opponent obviously still had cards left in their hand before, so what's going underneath this one? A reanimate, sure. And then they're just going to play this Creation of Avacyn. Yeah. That's pretty good. It's telling us what we have to beat. A Lion Sash. That's not the one really, is it? Like, this can do some stuff, but it's not going to beat whatever comes out of this. So what we need to do here is play a Shuko and then get a Surveil Land going. I don't think the Lion Sash is good enough. We need to find our win condition. They might have put, I guess we're going to see what they've put now. So we get a turn to work out if it's a Doughty Voidwalker to shut us down or if it's just a big Archon to ruin our day. Let's have a look. It is the big Archon. Okay. We can beat that with a Plow. Right, thoughts is from our opponent. Our hand is a bit soft. We're relying on Surveil Lands here. But we can Surveil into a cantrip and cast it. Doughty Voidwalker is exceptional here. So we're going to need like a Nadu and just start churning out cards. In the end step, we'll go and get a Meticulous Archive. A Ponder. I would like to put that on top of my library, please. This means our opponent will have a Ponder under their Voidwalker, but that's not really what we care about right now. Okay, Ponder. Help me out here. A Stoneforge Mystic isn't going to beat what our opponent's doing. I think we have to go any order and shuffle here. A Narcomoeba. You are a very bad card. Okay, so we play this out so we can go and get the Hedge Maze. We're not going to play out the Narcomoeba, we're just going to discard it to the Archon trigger. I guess we could discard the land, but then we can't play Nadu and the Narco, which is something we want to do with it anyway. I guess if we drew a land off of our Nadu, maybe we could. Interesting. So if we draw Nadu next turn, I just think we want to have the most amount of mana though. So we've got one redraw, a Surveil, and we've also got whatever we find off of that. So I think having the most mana is better than having those Narcomoeba in case we just happen to spike the Nadu. It's going to be tough. Our opponent's deck looks pretty cool though. I was expecting to see some mono black reanimate stuff going on. So we're going to get bapped by this Doughty Voidwalker for 3. Next turn we take 12. This is 9, 10, 11, 12 next turn. So we crack this. And we die if we crack this. But I think we have to try and win the game now. What fresh hell is this? Okay, just a Boggart Trawler. Yeah, well, we're definitely dead anyway, so it's pretty elementary what we have to do now. Crack this. It's Hedge Maze time. Step through. That gets us the Illusionist. Or we get to bounce 2 of their creatures. Huh. I think this is okay. It's not how I wanted to use my step through. But it keeps us going for another turn. So I will take that. We probably want... probably a Tundra is fine. We could just get the Savannah to round things out. Underground Sea is not really going to do anything for us here. I think it probably is still the Tundra though. Please go away, big scary monsters. For now at least. They do just get to replay the Doughty Voidwalker, and they are beating us down with a 3-1 guy. But this buys us 2 draw steps perhaps. And an additional draw off the Saga Lantern when we desperately need it. So we need to find a Plow to answer the Doughty. And then we need to find a Cephalid Illusionist. And we obviously just have to use a tutor for a Cephalid Illusionist just so we get to survive for a turn. Because we can't just mill our whole library in the face of a Doughty Voidwalker, because then we don't get to win the game. Right, there's a Doughty Voidwalker. That's for 6 next turn. This doesn't really help us out. We didn't board in the Haywire Might, did we? No. Okay. So we probably have to crack the Saga Lantern in our opponent's end step. So we're going to go to 2 here. We need to find a Plow. Like, we can obviously just block their Trawler with our Urza Saga token next turn. But we have to answer the Doughty. It's going to be a grief just for more power. It is. Well, that's a bit yikes for us. Opponent's deck is cool though. Alright, I am in drawing a card mode here. Did not find a Plow. This does draw us a bunch of cards, but is that going to help us on this board? No. Do we Island Cycle now for the marginal thinning impact? No, because we need a lot more than what we've got here. A Force of Will. That's not the one, is it? We need to draw some cards. I don't think we're winning this one, I'm afraid. And I guess we leave up white. We can find a land here. That doesn't do it. Alright, off to game 3. Do we want more hate for the Doughty Voidwalkers? They were pretty irritating. If we wanted these Prismatic Endings, then how would we want them? I think Lion Sash is slow, but I still think it's good enough. The Lavinia does stop some of their stuff, but it's usually going to be too little too late. Like, they're either going to do their turn 1 stuff. Like, what Lavinia does is it stops a reload later on. Like, once they reload with the Traxxer, then they can then dump some Lavinia things in. Maybe the Teferi, just as a way of bouncing some stuff, is pretty good still. It can bounce a giant monster out of play if they get one in. Maybe I'm on this. I like the Nadu because if we get scammed a bunch, we can just draw right back up again. And that's pretty strong. Do we need the Kaldra? I think we do need, like, just a way of winning the game. How do I feel about Delighted Halfling? Maybe that's where the cuts come here. We trim. Accelerating out the Teferi is okay. But this is just something that's going to get cleaned up quite easily. Yeah, I think we take out another Halfling. Teferi's also blue and pitches nicely. It's an interesting hand. Gives us a potential to win on turn 3, but that might be too slow. We could take this Brainstorm and try and use it to find some action, hide our action. But if we're casting Brainstorm on turn 1, we're not getting Urza Saga ticking on turn 1, which means we're going to be further away. And we're also going to want to find some stuff for Lion Sash. This is a pretty tough call. I think we have to mulligan this, though. How much do I believe in the power of Brainstorm in this hand? I think we can do better. Like, a turn 2 kill beats them reanimating a big monster on turn 1. I think we get rid of the Underground Sea here. Yeah, if they just smash a big monster on turn 1, then we beat that. If they Thoughtseize us, they have to take the Illusionist, otherwise they lose, which means we can try and Brainstorm into some action. So the question here is, what land do we play the Shuko off? If we play the Urza Saga and our opponent plays a slow game, then the Urza Saga will get some graveyard hate for us. If we play the Tundra, it allows us to Brainstorm on turn 2, possibly find a Source of Plowshares in a white land. But we don't really care to do that unless they're discarding our hand and putting a big monster into play. If we play this, it might incentivize our opponent to play a big monster early. So I think I'm going to play the Saga here and see if we can make our opponent play a big monster on turn 1 instead of trying to attack our hand in a slower fashion. Are they just going to the slow discard? Oh, no, just second main phase. Okay. Oh, wow. Do we just get to do it? Our opponent might have some interaction for us. I thought Force of Will would have been an excellent draw there. Given the nature of this matchup, I think we are supposed to go for it here. Okay, so we get an Narcomoeba up. Alright, so we're milling. Doing some more milling. Our opponent appears to be F6, but I think we are still supposed to Cabal Therapy them given the chance. They're telling us to go for it content-wise, which suggests to me that they think that we have this game here. So still 2 more Narcomoebas out there. I would like to Cabal Therapy my opponent here. Sacrificing this. Just being clean about it. Our opponent doesn't have the thing there. Right, so now we just get to make sure we do this. We have another Narcomoeba in our deck still, and that'll be the 3rd creature. We do have to click through our entire library here, though. Because we're playing a Yorion deck, which means more clicking. Right, so now we've got no cards in library. We cast this Dread Return, targeting Thassa's Oracle, sacrificing our 3 friends, and then we win the game. GG's opponent. That was a really interesting game. The new black show and tell type card was really interesting. I'm definitely going to fool around with that myself at some point. Alright, we're 2-0. Let's go to round 3. We'll reveal our Yorion at the beginning of round 3. Okay, our hand has a route to the combo. We've got a little bit of protection in the form of Force of Will and Plow for our opponent's stuff. This hand seems pretty good. I think I would rather have our Urza Saga wastelanded than our Tundra. So I will lead on the Saga to give us the potential turn 3 kill. And if that goes wrong, we can always try and Brainstorm our way out of it. Alright, our opponent's mulligan to 5, so very happy I have this Force of Will now. Usually at the start of a new meta, you see a lot of people playing combo decks as a general rule. Like, we're playing one as well, so. Alright, Dark Ritual. Is this going to be a Beseech? We will counterspell this, pitching Teferi. Alright, our opponent's just had enough and has scooped it up. Okay, so we are looking at a mono black Urza, probably Urza Storm, so like Saga Storm. That's my guess. So we're going to want Counter Magic. We're going to want Veil of Summers. We're probably going to want this Haywire Might. Pithing Needle on our opponent's Urza Saga is pretty reasonable. Prismatic Ending can also blow some stuff up. This is not a Source to Plowshares matchup unless our opponent pivots into Sheoldred. And we have to decide if we'd rather have these Plows or these Teferis. Teferis are blue cards, can bounce Sheoldred. I think I want the Teferi. Once again, I think we're looking at probably cutting some of these Delighted Halflings. I don't think that's what this game is going to be about. I like to have the Stoneforge. We have a threat that we can pressure our opponent's life total, because if you give your opponent enough time, they will win the game. So this is some nice pressure. We don't need the uncounterability because our opponent's doing their own combo stuff. They're not going to be counterspelling us. Nadu just allows us to draw a whole bunch of cards and is a real fun thing to do. I don't think we want anything else from up here. Oh, Lavinia. That's the big one we want. Nearly forgot that. Let's have Lavinia instead of this Halfling. This one is obviously very good against our opponent's deck. Pithing Needle can name our opponent's Urza Saga like we discussed. Maybe they're playing Wishclaw Talisman. That's a thing we can use. This Needle on. And I think that's probably better than having a Halfling. So we'll go in like this. We're also keeping the Soulguide Lanterning in case our opponent's playing... Well, we know they're playing Gaia's Will in their deck. That line was a Gaia's Will line for sure. So we need to begin the game with some sort of interaction with our opponent. This has interaction, but we don't get to play the game. So I think we have to mulligan here. It does a thing, doesn't it? I think I'll keep this and probably bottom this Narcomoeba. We do need to draw a land, but we have the win on turn 3 if we draw any blue land. Our opponent's mulligan to Force, while Force of Will has some pretty high value attached to it. We could have kept the Narcomoeba as a blue card to pitch. That would have also been fine here. But I think I want to have 2 lands because they're disappearing. I don't really want to bin that off. Maybe bin off the Stoneforge instead of the Narcomoeba. That's certainly an option. Our opponent didn't see what our deck was. So they're not going to be boarding in any hate for us. They're just going to be trying to board in the things that they can do to win the game. And like the things that stop the things that we have to stop our opponent. So then we go for Saga here. Jam this Soulguide Lantern. That shuts off the easy Gaia's Will lines. That's a pretty good draw. We're very good at drawing this Soulguide Lantern today. I won't complain about my luck on that front. A Summoner's Pact. Okay. This is going to be an Elvish Spirit Guide. So we just have to counter what comes out of this and then... Alright, so they're going to have 2 Elvish Spirit Guides in hand and 2 other cards. Is this an Oops All Spells pivot? They've got a Gemstone Mine, so it's probably not Oops All Spells. Alright, so they've got this Manamorphose. This is going to get them black, black, black for Necro Dominance. And then we just count on the Necro Dominance and they probably are dead. Yeah, so they have got 1 card in hand. We can just say no to this. And that's the end of that chapter, I think. They're going to lose to their own Summoner's Pact trigger in their upkeep. Right, we don't actually get to play much magic here. Alright, another win in the book. So we're cruising along with a 3-0 so far. Let's go to round 4. Alright, we are into round 4 now. Our hand is a little bit on the clunky side. We don't really want this Kaldra in our hand. I do like the Nadu, but it's a blue card for Force of Will. I think I'd rather go to some sort of mulligan with some cantrips. This hand is okay, I suppose. Like, we've got Surveil lands. I just don't like this Kaldra, but we can maybe brainstorm that back in at a later date. Alright, I'm going to believe in the power of these Surveil lands. Maybe at some point we'll put a Yorion into our hand. That's a thing we're allowed to do. Prismatic Vista. Okay, so we're going to be in for a long game, most likely. Unless our opponent's on some sort of Omnitel list. But usually Prismatic Vistas are for like the slower, controlier decks. Obviously, new meta, who knows? I think we want the Flooded Strand here, and we can fetch the Meticulous Archive at end step. This gives us the ability to flex into casting a Source to Plowshares if we need to for some reason, like if they randomly Hull Breacher echo us or something. It's just the safest way to keep up various things. There's a Snow-Covered Mountain and an Ancient Tomb. Squee Dubious Monarch. So that creates a guy. Is this worth plowing? I think it is. Like, it's a recursive threat. I also think we want to find a plains here since our opponent is showing us Blood Moon type stuff over there. Like, they're fetching basic. They got basic fetch. They've cast Dead Spell off of an Ancient Tomb. This is not my first rodeo. We also can now find the Cephalid Illusionist. Okay, we now also have just the combo locked. We will need to draw another land if we want to do it this way. So we play this, we can cycle at end step, and we have a chance of winning the game next turn. I think I'll take a chance of winning the game next turn. We also want to play this one out so we can access blue mana if our opponent does have a Blood Moon. I want to do the really broken Nadu stuff, but the one time we got to do that, we already had won the game. Collected Company. Anything could come out of this. I think we just got to say no to that one. I'm scared of what that could represent. I like Collected Company. Feels like a bit of an ask to play it in Legacy sometimes, but I like you know, I like Breakdown if you watch Breakout if you watch my channel. So Collected Company is just like its bigger brother. Okay, we got the Cephalid Illusionist. Also the step through can tutor for Nadu as well, because why not? We didn't draw the land here, so we have to play this Hedge Maze. We don't want this one. I don't want to play stuff out into potential removal here, so I'm just going to play out this Narcomoeba. We're going to want this body to sacrifice later on anyway. And we don't want our opponent to know how close we are to winning the game. If they've got red removal, we can also direct that removal at our Narcomoeba instead of the Nomads, if we got a Narcomoeba in play. A Collected Company. Well, we have to just see what our opponent throws into play now. I'm not expecting Graveyard Hate. Broadside Bombardiers, Metallic Mimic. Okay. I don't really know what's going on in our opponent's deck, but it's cool. And I like it. Collected Company is a card I've been wanting to play with for a while. I just haven't found the right place for it. I doubt... They could throw their Metallic Mimic, I suppose, at our Narcomoeba, but that's not really the target they want. So they have one mountain up, which could be a Lightning Bolt. So we need to keep that in mind. A Nadu. That's pretty gross. Let's play this Nomads. We can redirect damage to our Narcomoeba. Alright, GG from our opponent there. Okay, this looks like a Hydroblast matchup. I know that much. If they're playing Ancient Tombs, Lavinia becomes potentially more useful. What are they putting in? So they put in Broadside Bombardiers. That's the thing I would quite like to Pithing Needle. Do I want this Lavinia because they're an Ancient Tomb deck? I think the Prismatic Ending, if our opponent's trying to put a load of creatures into play, have some more removal, that makes some sense to me. They're trying to play instants like off of the Collected Company, that, you know, that's their instant, trying to get creatures off of, so that makes Teferi a bit more interesting on that front. I don't really need my spells to be uncounterable, but I think accelerating might be quite useful in this matchup as well. Yeah, it's tough to pick the cuts with this deck sometimes. If I'm expecting Blood Moon, maybe we can trim an Urza Saga. Don't mind trimming one. I don't really want to go lower than that, because they're obviously still just a great card. And what if they don't have Blood Moon? Is this a match where we're supposed to just board out our combo? I don't think it is. But we could board down on it. That's certainly a reasonable idea. So you can board down on the Illusionists. And then we're still looking for two cuts here. Maybe it's the Teferi. This seems reasonable. Like, we could have Force of Negations, but that's not going to hit the Collected Company. And we're only suspecting Blood Moon. And we already fetched around it in game one, so we can do that again. Right, let's reveal our Yorion. I don't like the Cabal Therapy, but I do like the Hydroblast and the Ponder. And the fact that we can fetch both of our basics here. A turn 1 Blood Moon would obviously be a bit of a pain. We should have brought out this Soul Guide Lantern as well. That was an error. Okay. Wooded Foothills. Tiger. Noble Hierarch. Okay. That's not the end of the world. So we play out this Misty Rainforest. So we can get the island off of this and the plains off of the Flooded Strand. And this allows us to have the Hydroblast up this turn without messing the way we want to fetch. Cavern of Souls. So a Hydroblast is a removal spell rather than a counter spell now. So our opponent just like Gruul Goblins. Is this going to be Broadside? It is Broadside. I do not want to play against this card. I'm going to get that basic island. Does mean Nadu is going to be harder to cast. Destroy target permanent if it's red. That card gets out of hand pretty quick. It's going to bash us for 3 this turn. And who knows what next turn. Okay, a Plow. Big fan of having a Plow. I would like to ponder first here. We're looking for Cephalid Illusionist. There is a Cephalid Illusionist. Okay. I want to keep this Misty so that we can go and get... So we can go and try and... I guess we're not going to if we're going to crack this for a Plow, actually. I was going to say so that we could Cabal Therapy our opponent first and make sure they don't have like a Surgical Extraction or a Fairy Macabre. We would have to choose which of those we name. But we can sack a creature. A Broadside Bombardiers. I think we're just going to Plow this. And not mess around here. Cephalid Breakfast is such a good deck. Lorien Revealed. Alright. So we've got our Urza Saga. Let's play our Nomads. Let's play our Illusionist. I don't believe we go for it this turn. We wait till next turn and then we can Lorien Revealed for our Underground Sea, and then Cabal Therapy first. If our opponent tries to interact with our creatures, then we can try and go off. Alright, assuming Spirit Guide, they're going to just kill our Nomads. We're going to try and go off here. That's what next turn is for. We just want to be as safe as possible. And we can do this at instant speed, so removal is not what we're worried about, it's Graveyard Hate. Goblin Grenade, targeting our Cephalid Illusionist. We'll mill some cards. Right, we will mill the Cephalid. We'll mill again. Surgical Extraction on the Thassa's Oracle. Yep, that's fine. We're going to have to try and win with just sort of like mid-range Nadu beats. So this is a game where we have to do the thing with our new exciting card. We also do have Urza Saga ticking down. I don't believe we want to just mill into some Narcomoebas here, although that's an option, actually. Do we want to mill just to get some Narcomoebas into play? I think that's okay. Where are the Narcomoebas? There we go. Do I keep going? How many cards have we got left in library? 44. It's quite a lot. I wouldn't mind another Narcomoeba here. There's a lot of Nadus going. Alright, we will have this Narcomoeba, and then we will let this go away now. So we've got 17 cards left in our library. A Nadu. We can draw our whole deck if we want to. What is gone, actually? Have we lost the Kaldra? So there's one Shuko gone. Two Shuko gone. Kaldra is in the graveyard as well. So I think we do need to just make some as a Saga monsters. So I think we attack here. Right, let's have a quick check of our lands. One Trop. One Meticulous Archive. Two Trops. One Tundra. One Underground Sea. Yeah, okay, so we can cycle this. We don't have any green sources left. Oh, no, we've got the Savannah, actually. We've got the... Play this, and we can start making some constructs. Not going to have much in the way of stuff to grab with this Saga, though. Now, we can reanimate a Nadu out of our graveyard if we want to. I don't really think that's what this game is about right now. Simian Spirit Guide. Okay. I've been in that position before. So let's make a friend. Let's make another friend. Our opponent's fetching around Pithing Needle. I don't believe they've got a spell here. Do we have a spell that we can fetch, or have we milled them all? We have milled them all. What have we got left? 3 Brainstorms, Delighted Halfling, Force of Will, Narcomoeba, Ponder, Ending, Plow, Saga. That's pretty good hits left in our deck, to be honest. And I will play out this Soulguide Lantern so our creatures are bigger. We'll take out our opponent's Broadside Bombardiers, why not? Good attacks. We got 2 flyers and a 3/3. So we can find that Savannah, we can basically draw our whole deck. Alright, we've got the GGs in chat. So that's a 4-0 so far. We are absolutely cruising. Let's go on to the final round of this makeshift league. We're into the final round, and we've got a hand that is going to go back into our deck. This hand is a little better. We can bottom the Narcomoeba. I don't mind having a couple of plows, and the Surveil lands really do change the way you evaluate your opening hands. Okay, well, we're 1 card away from winning the game. That's not too bad for an opening hand. We're on the play, so probably play out the Flooded Strand so we can try and get a Meticulous Archive going, or potentially a Hedge Maze, which opens up the possibility of Nadu, but means we can be wastable off of white when we might want to double spell in white at some point. So I just play out this Flooded Strand and pass. Snow-covered forest. Exploration. Okay, this could be a bit of a tricky one. Some kind of land strategy. This incentivizes me to not get non-basics, but I think we do need the Surveil here. Let's just go for this Meticulous Archive now. This makes me want to get the double white rather than the green for the Trop. What's happening here? They're surveilling first. I think they want to wait to see what we've surveilled, because if we put something in the bin, it might change what they're looking for. A Lorien Revealed. We don't really want that right now. I don't mind having extra lands against a potential wasteland strategy, but I don't think that's where we're going to get the most joy in our life. Okay. We just need to find our way of winning the game. Ooh, Serra's Sanctum. That is unusual. Alright. We might be on something completely different. Enchantress's Presence. Yeah? Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. That's a lot of cards our opponent might be able to draw this game. Alternatively, we could just luck sack our way into the win. Why not, I suppose? Cephalid Breakfast is so easy when you just draw your combo naturally every time. I'm a little bit worried about my opponent's lack of concession here. Do they have a way of interacting with us? Or they just want to see our deck? That's probably more of it, actually. Gives them better ideas of how to sideboard. Because Yorion is kind of unusual here. And we'll yield to this. Let's just keep targeting our Illusionist. Another Narcomoeba has jumped into play. We haven't got the Cabal Therapy yet. There's the Cabal Therapy. I would like to flashback this Cabal Therapy right now. What am I going to name? What could they be? Have main deck graveyard hate? I don't think there's anything. Endurance? Oh, okay. We're going to name Endurance there because they've shown us green. They don't want us to see their hand. Okay, so some kind of lands / enchantress thing. So this means that Prismatic Ending is probably going to be pretty good. Lavinia could do some stuff if they're relying on big mana from the Serra's Sanctum. Haywire might blows up some of their things. Force of Negation certainly interacts with some of their things too. How useful do I think Source to Plowshares is going to be in this matchup? Not especially useful. I'm also not convinced by the Delighted Halfling. It's something that we've been cutting a fair bit. And I think this round is no exception. And then we can trim a couple. You can trim one plow here. I do like the Halfling as a way to power these out, but we just haven't been playing the matchups where that's really what we want to be doing. And I think we're just playing this sort of controller game makes some sense. Do we want a Soul Guide Lantern in our deck or not? Our opponent hasn't shown us anything that makes me think we do. What is Pithing Needle likely to name in this matchup? Uncertain. Maybe just get this other plow back in case they've got Sithis, which is one that we can target. But there's definitely a possibility that we have these plows that do nothing. But sometimes they might do something. That's what Brainstorm's for at the end of the day. Right, we reveal our Yorion. What does our hand do? If we're expecting Wastelands, which is a potential, I don't really want to keep this one. So with a little bit more stability underneath it. We can keep this one, chuck back the Oracle. We've got 2 lands. Sure. Back in you go, Oracle. That card is at the bottom of our library, but we're going to shuffle soon. There is a Snow-Covered Forest into Carpet of Flowers. So this is one of those interesting choices where we can either use our resources to try and nail the carpet here and stop and get the mana advantage, or we can go after the stuff in their hand. I think with a deck like Enchantress that needs to get the wheels rolling with certain engines, I think I'm going to let this carpet go. But let it be known that I feel terrible about it. This Yorion keeps popping up on my screen. It really wants to be played. Okay. So we could Brainstorm and then in our upkeep use the Lorien Revealed. So we get a shuffle. But I think we're going to see what our opponent does and then we can try and work it out on the fly. Right, so they've added 1 white mana to their pool so they can make a 3-drop this turn. Enchantress, that's not one we get to interact with, unfortunately. And it's a cast trigger rather than a resolve. Like, oh, come into play trigger sort of thing. Or enters the battlefield, as it's called now, and has been for a long time. So it means that we can't counter this and stop them drawing cards. A Wild Growth. I don't think that's what we're fighting over here. I think we're just going to try and fight over maybe like some sort of prison piece. We can't win next turn with our hand. I think we Brainstorm on the end step and then cycle the Lorien Revealed in our upkeep. Yikes. Okay, we don't want this Narcomoeba. That can get out of here. And we certainly don't need another Nadu. So they can go away. In the upkeep, we will cycle this. We'll go and get ourselves... I kind of want a Trop here. But if we draw a Plow, that's something I definitely want access to. If we draw a Ponder, I want access to it as well. I guess the Plow's not that good here. But the Prismatic Ending is... But we have a lot more cantrips in our deck, right? So I think this is a really tough call, actually. We could go and get a Surveil land for the guaranteed extra look here. That might be the hot ticket here. I'll get the Hedge Maze. Oh, okay. Our opponent had enough of us searching our library. Okay. I was going to get this Hedge Maze, I think. But that's kind of an important decision. This is something you sometimes find, because we're having to play in the tournament practice room, people scoop a lot earlier. And they have other stuff going on. But anyway, that's the end of our 5 matches. So let's talk about this deck. So we won all of our rounds today. But it must be said that, first of all, we're in the tournament practice room, where you tend to get more off-meta picks than you would do in a regular league, because it's free to play in the tournament practice room. So people try out a lot sort of wilder and wackier stuff there. Also, there's a new format with Modern Horizons, went live a few hours ago, which means that you're probably going to see a lot of people experimenting, so there's going to be less polished decks, whereas this is kind of a polished deck with just 4 Nadu slotted into it, more or less, and the Halflings. So even though we did have this undefeated streak and our deck looked pretty good. I don't necessarily know how much we can take from that, other than the fact that this known deck that was already good is still good, and this new tool is great, although we never really got to showcase it, which is a bit of a pity. So let's get into the nitty and gritty of this specific deck. So the Delighted Halfling was something that didn't really feel that amazing in the matches we played, but we never played against a Force of Will deck, right? Is that true? No, we played against one Force of Will deck, the blue-black Vesuvian Drifter Show and Tell style deck. And Delighted Halfling is okay in that spot because it lets us play Teferi, uncounterable, and obviously the Nadu as well. So it was okay in that spot, but that was, again, a combo-y matchup where we're not trying to force through these things to get our really good value and dominate the game. We're just trying to stop our opponent from winning, and then we win at some point, for the most part. Or we race them with a protected kill, which we also did. So whilst the Delighted Halfling didn't look good in this particular set of matches, we didn't play against the decks that we actually want it for. But I think you can safely say that Cephalid Breakfast is going to be a pretty big deck. The fact that this card slots so nicely into what Cephalid Breakfast wants to do. Like, we want to be having these effects in our deck anyway. So we're playing these cards that, you know, they're not great cards on their own. You can certainly play Shuko and Nadu in a lot of decks. So I've seen some Green Sun Zenith deck with just like a bunch of dorks and stuff, which is playing Shuko and Stoneforge Mystic, right? I've seen those banned decks. They're not even trying to do the combo stuff here, because this is just this with a load of mana dorks. As soon as you get the Shuko, you just draw most of your deck, and you can win the game pretty easily from there. So they don't need the combo. So this isn't like a dedicated Nadu deck. It just slots really nicely into what we're doing here. And having a third color isn't such a big deal in these breakfast decks anyway. Sometimes you see them leaning more heavily into black. Leaning into green gives us Veil of Summer out the sideboard, which is obviously a very potent tool with people running Grease and all sorts. So this seems like the obvious home for Nadu, even if it's not the most broken deck for Nadu. But we are doing another broken thing on our deck in the form of just saying, oops, we can win on turn 2 with protection. Which, you know, we've done. And the Cephalid Breakfast combo is a very powerful combo, right? It's been a thing in Legacy for a while. Ever since Thassa's Oracle's been printed, it's been a good deck. And it kind of ebbs and flows of how good it is, but it's always something where if you see it win the tournament, you go, oh, yeah, it's Cephalid Breakfast. That makes sense. And if you can rip really hot like we did today, then it looks absolutely unbeatable, where you just got, you know, the removal you need, the counters you need, just the combos. You just have it all, right? And that's kind of the strength of this deck. You can just say, oops, I win, whilst also being a pretty strong mid-rangey deck. And this is the sort of magic that I like to play, actually. I like decks that have an I win button, but also have other stuff going on. Yes, I do love playing Turbo decks. But generally speaking, I like a sort of mid-rangey / control-y deck with a combo finish. That's always been what I've sort of gravitated towards in various formats over the years. So Cephalid Breakfast fits quite nicely into that. Yes, we have to run quite a lot of stuff to make Cephalid Breakfast work. This column of 17 cards is kind of what we need, and none of these cards are particularly great on their own. And they're all just part of our greater whole. So it is a big deck building cost, but obviously the effect of that is really strong. And if we can draw lots and lots of additional cards with Nadu, it means that the downside of running these is less, because all of a sudden these 5 cards become good cards. And then Step Through also becomes a good card because it lets you curve into Nadu on turn 3, which could be pretty backbreaking. So we make these cards better than they would normally be if we don't have our combo. And then because we can draw loads of cards, it means that we don't mind having some cards that are dead, because we're just going to draw through and just have this unstoppable glut of cards. Now, we didn't really get to showcase it, but there was that one game where I could have drawn like 8 or 10 cards or something on that turn, but we had our opponent dead anyway. But you can kind of see the power of Nadu there. And in the sort of mid to late game, when you've got a bunch of lands out, if you just drop your Nadu, draw a couple of cards, if you find like your Delighted Halfling or your Nomads or whatever, then all of a sudden you just draw a bunch more cards, and it just kind of snowballs from there and becomes unstoppable. I think it's a bit early to be talking about bans for Nadu, but some people already are. People have described it as being able to play Skull Clamp where your creature survives. So that's a pretty cool reference for those who are old enough to remember Skull Clamp like I am. I think Nadu is definitely the business here, and Bosch and Roll played something on his channel recently that really showcased this, and I'm sure there's going to be loads of decks doing it, and it's going to be a thing to watch out. And it's very good in the scam meta, because it's just this card that lets you completely undo all of the hand disruption. You just go, okay, here's a card that's good anyway. A 3-mana 3/4 flyer that draws you a card whenever it's targeted. That is an amazing card, even if it was just whenever an opponent targets it. The fact that it's whenever anything targets it is just, you know, low-key broken with this sort of stuff. We didn't showcase as much as I wanted to, but I think I've explained it quite enough. And we did see that one situation where it would have been absolute bananas. And I can guarantee you I'm going to be playing some more Nadu decks. Probably some more focused Nadu decks rather than this one. But this is what the donor on my Patreon wanted to see. They're actually the winner of a monthly contest I run on my Patreon, where I give out a free donation deck to somebody who subscribes to my Patreon on any of the paid tiers. So for as little as $2 a month, you can support my channel, which I really appreciate. Helps me pay my bills. And also you get to have a chance at getting a donation deck on the channel like our donor today did. What I would also say is, with Modern Horizons 3 out now, a lot of people are interested in seeing some stuff. So if you've got some cool stuff you want to make me play, by all means get in touch via the Discord, or contact me through the Patreon, or through Twitter, or whatever. Just get in touch with me if you want a donation deck and we can sort something out. There's so many things I want to play, so it's quite nice having somebody tell me, because otherwise I'm a bit indecisive, because there's so many cool things to try out right now. With that said and done, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate the support you will give me, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.